What is going on, YouTube? This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles, and I have a very special guest on air with me today. I don't do a lot of live stream, guys, but I am so stoked to have this guest on. We have been connecting on Instagram for, I would say, probably a little over a year now, and I've been wanting to have him on the channel, and I finally have him on here. So say hello to my guest, Mr. Errol Molnar. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. Thanks, man, for inviting me here.
No, man, I have been, like I said, super stoked to have you on here. For anybody that doesn't know Errol, he has got one of the most amazing collections that I've seen personally. It always has the amazing stuff to show on Instagram, and we're going to get into all that stuff that he's going to bring to the table for you guys to see today. But before we get started, we're going to talk to him a little bit and find out, how he got into the hobby, some information for noobs, for seasoned collectors and stuff like that. So let's right off the bat, let's start into when did you start collecting comics?
I started collecting comics probably as a kid, like anybody, like probably 8, 9, 10 years old. I was basically I was driven by the comic collecting, where I go to a friend's house, probably like I said, 2 blocks away, and I used to go to school with him in my elementary school. We used to go to his basement, and he'd have these big boxes of comics inside. He'd have probably, Silver Age, some Bronze Age books. But to us, it was just basically reading material. It's just like, these are the cool stuff that any kid would want to see, where, unlike today, it's just a total different ballpark, where back then it was just the fun of it.
Yeah, it was fun, right, man? I miss those days.
Yeah, it was a great time. There's no pressure in collecting books. There's no pressure of all these, I hate to say it, but speculation on the overload when you're watching every YouTube channel is just getting out of hand, where it's, to me, where it's like, if you want something and you like something, collect it. Don't just start following people because they're trying to tell you, you have to get it, you have to buy it, you need it, you want it. Just do it because you love it.
Yeah. And that's a big thing that's around now that we didn't have when we were kids, right? There wasn't like social media and stuff like that. We got into it because we love what we saw. We like reading them. Like the art, the stories, we love the characters, right?
Yes, 100%.
So with that said, like, how long you've been collecting comics, you think? Straight through, or did you stop in between?
I've been probably collecting, like, since I was a kid. I never collected them. I just probably like, if you want to call it collecting, where it's just basically in a box with no backboards and stuff like that, up until I was probably maybe 15, 16, 17. I never really collected up until then, because they're just basically reading material. Up until I was probably in my mid-20s, I started collecting, where I was actually probably introduced to one of the things which got me back into comics was the death of Superman, number 75. It was one of the things that driven me to it, where it's like I was all over the news and people saying Superman just died, and everyone it was a huge marketing tool that they used to promote the character, because it was never very getting to a point of popularity wise where it should have been, because it's basically Superman, right? So to kind of like bring it back from resurrection wise, let's kill him off and make it a big publicity stunt. And it drove people to buy it. I bought it. To me, I fell for where I enjoyed reading it. I took all the stacks of books I had. I collected them, every single one of them, week after week. And what I did was I piled them up and then read them after a year, just almost like binged them.
Yeah. I was probably the same way. Like, I was into it very young, like the same as yours, 8 or 9. But it didn't start like the bang till I think it was a little bit older than that, like the 90s comics and all, like the foil covers and stuff like that. Of course, like I got into it then, like more into it. But right after that stopped, like right after Image Comics came out and they put out all those books, outside of Spawn, I got into it for a little bit. The #1 issues that everyone went crazy for, I didn't really, that's where after that I kind of stopped. Like that boom got me out of the market for a while, and I didn't really get back into the 2000s. So it's amazing that you're in this for such a long time without really taking a break. I know you said you paused, but without taking a break, that's amazing. You must really love books, comic books.
Yeah, I like it. To me, it's not just a hobby, it's almost like a part of my life, where if I don't have the collecting wise in me, I feel kind of like empty, where like I like, as far as like, say, we all work to make a living and stuff like that, but if it was just work and make a living and nothing on the side, life would be pretty much boring. So you have to have a balance of life, where whether it be some kind of curricular activity wise, a sporting event or something wise, I always try to drain myself into ways where always keeps myself occupied, where I get bored very fast. So in order to kind of occupy my mind, collecting wise is always the thing where it was always interests me, the history of the books, artists of the books, you know, like how it became to be, and just it's just the history to it.
Do you have a favorite artist?
Probably my favorite artist at the time when I was probably in my early mid-20s was probably Dan Jurgens. Like he was doing a lot of stuff for Superman at the time, and I loved his art style. He just beautiful stuff. Then it kind of progressed to going, you know, I love Jeff Loeb's writing. It's absolutely sensational. His writing is phenomenal when he was doing a lot of Superman stuff back in the early 2000s, late 90s. That's when Ed McGuinness came into play, where he was taking over as the artist. I love the style, Ed McGuinness' style, because it had a different look to it. It had more of a kind of not manga style, but the bigger muscles where Superman should have looked like, you know, as far as like kind of over exaggerated, but still his style kind of intrigued me. But then later on, when I started collecting up until the Superman stuff, I started going into more Marvel. Then I started really appreciating, you know, Romitas, you know, the Ditkos and stuff like that.
To me, John Romita has always been my favorite. The way he draws, the way he has like players poses, like I fell in love with his art as soon as I saw it. Like early on, like you were a Superman fan, you were collecting Dan Jurgen, you loved his artwork. To me, obviously Todd McFarlane was the other Spider-Man artist that I fell in love with. But as soon as that period ended, like I was always drawn to John Romita. So totally get it.
Romita was like a legend,
What about now? Like that was back then when you're 8, 9 years old. Yeah. What about now? What are you drawn to now? And I'm not just saying like obviously you know, Silver Age Spider-Man, but what are you like drawn to now? Do you still read books? Do you have a favorite character that you actually still looking to buy, that you do buy consistently?
As far as like what I'm looking for, what I'm doing, like how do you say it? I think there's come a time when you collect so much stuff, it goes to a point of how much more do you actually need, and how much do you actually appreciate what you have? Like
that's a great point.
Too many people collecting. What happens is you become to a point where I hate to say it, but you become a hoarder, and you have all this stuff that you have, and you actually think that do all this stuff make you happy? You know, does it have to have like 400, 500 books? You know, for me, wise, it's never been about that. It's about having quality where you have to almost like appreciate something. It's almost like if you're going to grow a plant, you can't grow 100 plants at once and try to take care of them all at the same time at the same rate. It'll never happen. Take care of the best ones. Take care of the best ones that you have. And what I do is, you know, I appreciate more the Silver Age, because ever since the Marvel universe started coming more into play back in the 2000s, you know, mid 2000, where you had the X-Men come in there, and it was more exciting to watch them because DC wasn't doing anything as far as development wise since Superman or Batman. And it just kind of like, you know, the fans were kind of missing something here. But then as soon as Marvel started coming out with all these different characters and these titles, it just made it more and more exciting to finally see what you're reading is on the big screen now. So I just look for, like I said, I look for and I appreciate the Ditko work. Like his stuff is phenomenal. You know, he's like the grandfather with Stan Lee as far as Spider-Man's concerned.
I agree. I think that's why me and you are like on a lot of pages, on a lot of the same page, because we collect a lot of the same stuff, a lot of Silver Age, a lot of big keys, a lot of stuff that kind of has personal meaning to us. And that's, of course, why I wanted to have you on the show.
No, it's my pleasure.
So, as I said, I think anybody who doesn't know, he is at Aramona, our Instagram, guys. Give him a follow because he has always posted amazing stuff, not only books, artwork. So there's amazing stuff you're never even going to see before, because some of the stuff he has is absolutely amazing. And hopefully he brought some of it to show for us today. But he also posts some really funny stuff at times too, which I love that stuff, because if you're not in this hobby at least to get a laugh at some of the stuff we do, even if some of the crap that I do on YouTube, like you need a laugh, right? That's why we do it. Give him a follow because you will enjoy yourself. I promise that. So
I have a you know, my personality and I have a great sense of humor. I don't take things seriously. I take it with a grain of salt. So if I'm talking about something as far as like say speculation markets, you know what I mean? Like speculation is great for the markets, but it comes to a point where how much is too much? You know, how much does it lead down to a person down the wrong path?
So speaking to which of this collection, do you have a favorite book in your collection? I know I do, so I got to ask this question.
Yeah, I do actually. I'll show it to you. This is probably tops everything. I acquired it last year. I think it was September last year I acquired it. So This is one of the proudest things I've ever done. So it's like it was climbing a mountain for this accomplishment, pretty much.
Yeah. Wow. That is amazing, guys. So for anybody who doesn't know, this copy is, of course, is a copy of an Amazing Fantasy 15. If you haven't seen the thumbnail of this video, I am calling him the AF15 King. AF15 King. We'll get into why in a little bit, but you guys can go check the prices of this book right now at that grade. It is whopping. I think it was a 7.5 that sold a little bit earlier in the year for that an insane amount of money. So that, my friends, is quite a book. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
How did you come across to get it?
A labor of love, pretty much. A labor of love. Like I started, pretty much the quest I started. There's another one I have is a 6.0, and I put that one aside still. So, but this is the one that's pretty much the top of the list of what I've accomplished to get where I started back in 2011, 12. And that's when like pretty much Marvel started going with the Silver Age as far as the movies were concerned, you know, things like that, where these are getting kind of really cool now to kind of get into these Silver Age books. And I just kind of just draw it into it. My very first Silver Age book I ever picked up was an Avengers 1. It must have been probably a very good plus, I think maybe 4.0. I picked it up for about, I think it was like $400 at the time. And that was a lot of money for me. It was, it was
a lot of money for anybody, but
it was a lot of money.
Just to see where that book is now and what that's worth now, that's crazy. Just the price that you paid for that. But yeah, that is a lot of money for anybody.
Yeah, I paid $400. That was probably the most I've ever spent for a comic book. And I didn't kind of like hesitate because I go, you know what? I'm working, I'm doing well. It's like, you know, it's like this book's gonna, you know, depreciate. It's the Avengers, right? So I put that book aside, and then what I did was I had this kind of notion where I go, you know, it's kind of cool if I actually go after these Silver Age keys, that's just to have them, like say X-Men 1, Tales of, you know, Suspense 39, you know, like pretty much what else I had, you know, X-Men 1 I had them all, like the list goes on and on. I just stacked them up, and then when I stopped at a certain point where I had like say 5 or 10 of them, and I go, you know what, something's different. When I actually, one of the first ones I picked up after the Avengers was the Amazing Fantasy 15 book, and I looked at that book and I kept on looking at it, and I said, this is a pretty cool book for a Spider-Man book. This is like, you know, the poster child of all Marvel comics. So I go.
So I was going to say, I'll stop you right there. You said you picked up an Amazing Fantasy 15, so it's not that copy right there.
Not this one. No. I started this low and I built it up year after year after year. So it's almost like saying, you know, in order to get to a certain point, you have to take baby steps. It's the only way to do it. It's the only way to do it. You can't jump into it. Yeah.
The first one you bought, what grade was it? You know, assumption.
It was about a 2.5. It was.
All right.
2.5. So, it cost, I think, like $2,000 at the time.
Oh my God. So for anybody who doesn't know out there, I actually have an AF15 2.5, and what I pay for it is significantly more than what Arrow paid for. That is amazing. All right. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, continue.
No,
start off with this AF15 2.5, and then
I started off with a 2.5, and then I said, you know what? Then what kind of drawed me to kind of get more and more was I was getting more and more introduced on YouTube as far as like, you know, comic collecting out there in the community wise, because I was new to it. I didn't know if anybody else was doing what I'm doing as far as collecting wise, and I was introduced to all these little videos on YouTube, and it was kind of fun to actually watch people what they're collecting, what I was collecting, but not to that extent. So I saw this one guy's post. He had, I think it was 2 or 3 AF15s on his YouTube channel. I forget what it was. It was like 10 years ago. And I go, that's kind of cool. He's got like 3 of them. I go, this guy's onto something. I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do what my instincts are telling me here. I go, instead of me getting, you know, say a Journey into Mystery 83 and all these other, you know, titles, you know, I'm going to go after the very most popular character of the whole Marvel universe. The first appearance of Spider-Man, because it's comparable to, say, Action Comics 1 and Detective 27. So it made no brainer to me to do what I wanted to do. I used my hindsight, and then what I did was every check I get, buy another one, go on eBay, buy another one. I'd be buying raw copies like, you know, like it's going out of style. And then what happened was I met one guy online, and he had this one website, and he had a 1.0, and it was signed by Stan Lee. Now, at the time he was selling it for 4,000, I think this was like back in 2013 or 14, and I knew I'd be overpaying for it at the time, but I didn't care because I knew time would take care of me anyways. So for me, wise, it was a no-brainer. So
let me stop you right there again. So for anybody out there in the community that doesn't know this, a 1.0 just sold, not signed by Stan Lee, for $29,000. So go ahead.
So then I acquired that book, and then what I did was, after I had my first or second book I had, because I lost count, so I had so many going in my head and in my collection, I laid out I think it was 5 copies, which I probably showed on YouTube, or so no, on Instagram, sorry, for so many times, where I'm proud to see that. You know what? It's these raw copies and a couple of graded copies. And then I said, now I want more. I want to take more pictures now. So then I kind of built up another stack, and then I built up some more, graded comics, and then I started flipping them where now the thing is, I'm not flipping them to make profits. That's what people understand. I'm flipping them to upgrade the levels to it. That's what I was trying to do. Because in order for me to go from here to there, I want to flip what I have, because let the comic, as far as like the appreciation, go with time. So that'll the comic set will fund itself, put it that way. And that's what I did.
That's how you guys take this for good advice. Any newbies out there or any seasoned collectors that want to upgrade their books, that's how you do it. You start off low and you upgrade when you can afford it. I actually try to do that when the books go down, but it's really hard right now with the way in Marvel, especially where things are just going through the roof. But that's how you do it.
It's hard because even at the time when I was doing it, I was impressed, because now I had about 7 or 8 AF15s in my collection.
That's amazing. That is freaking amazing. 7 or 8 at one time, folks.
And I put them on the bed. I couldn't spread them out because I think I showed you on Instagram. It was like a big round, like almost like a boomerang. And I couldn't fit any more on there. I stood back looking at it going, man, that's impressive. I said. So,
dude, if I had 7 or 8 AF15s, I'd probably lay in bed with them, not wearing any clothes on. I'd have to boot my wife out of the bed at that point. That is quite the accomplishment. And I have seen these photos, guys. If you're not following on Instagram, trust me, you're missing out, because there's some amazing stuff on that stuff. So is that the most copies you've had at one time, 7 or 8?
No, 11 is the most I had at one time. 11.
Wow.
11. And what I did was I took 4 of those lower grade copies, the 2.5s, 2.5, 2.0s. And what I did was I saw the 6.0 copy that was for sale, and it was asking for, I think it was 30 grand at the time. This is like 2014 or 15. And I go, now I'm going to play the trade game, because now I'm getting really into this now. Because now, the only teacher you can do yourself is teach yourself and how to do this. Someone can teach you wise, but if you teach it yourself and how to become good at something, just master it as hard as you can. That's what I did. I took what I had, the 4 copies, and I still have, like, say, 6 or 7 left. So it didn't bother me if I was to use those ones to get a higher grade, because now the potential is even higher now. So I took what I had, made the deal with it. I got my 6.0, show that aside, and put that away, and then kept building again.
Yeah. So also another comment I want to make is, there anybody out there who does own higher graded copies of books? They tend to appreciate faster than lower copies. So that's why he did this. I mean, he didn't do it for the money, obviously, but he did it because he wanted a higher grade copy of the book. But for people who do collect and worry about value, those higher grade books will always be worth more than the lower copies combined.
Yeah, I did that, just like I said. I was never doing it intentionally wise, where, I'm going to myself, oh, this would be worth this much money, this much money. If you do it for all the money, you're doing it for all the wrong reasons then. Yeah. That's why I never got into this market, as far as like being a collector wise. Do it because you actually want it, because you love these books. I love these books with a passion. If you do it for basically the money wise, you're putting a bad stigma on these books that you're buying now. It doesn't go hand in hand.
So how many AF15s do you have right now?
I have 3 right now.
3 right now. And obviously you said 7.0.
6.0 and a 2.5.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. So I have to ask this, because we're, as comic collectors, we're never going to take these books to the grave. So at some point in life, you plan on selling them, or, passing them down, or?
I do. I plan on I'm gonna treasure them as much as I can treasure them. You know what I mean? It's like, for me wise, if I can take care of them as much as they can take care of me in the end, then that's our main objective is. If your main objective is for money wise, then basically you're in the business for the wrong reasons. comics are to be loved, they're to be adored, treasured. But if you treat them as a dollar sign, then it's no different than going to a bank and buying a brick of gold. That's all it is. It's just money now.
Yeah.
It's these are artworks that are basically, I know they're commodities now because the market has gone so crazy for them, but for me, it was never about that. It's me actually like when I look at them, I treasure them. If they can come to a certain point where they become a certain amount of value, where whether it be $500,000 or $1 million down the road, so be it. Then obviously it's going to fund, me and my wife's retirement or whatever it be. So to me, wise, if I have to part with it, there's no regrets to it because everybody has to come to a road where this is the end of the line. You're not going to be buried with it. So you have to take yourself, to a point where do you see yourself with these books? I'm going to put them in a storage unit when I'm dead and give it to my grandkids if I have to. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah. So this is why, and for anybody who follows Errol on Instagram, and you should, I want you to send him a message or comment on one of his posts. Just say #AF15 King, because we have to get that rolling on Instagram. I want AF15 King to come up, and when you hashtag that, this man has to come up, just so everybody knows. That is quite a story, man. That is amazing.
Yeah, so it's just driven by it. I was just passionate. It's one of those things where, if you love something, love it the most you can. You know what I mean? And it'll reward you back.
Yeah. So I'm going to catch up on the chat. We do have a couple of people here. First is my stepson, Rye Guy. What's going on, bud? He says hello.
Hey,
Ben Compton. What's up, everybody? I can't read this, but hello, sir. Thanks for joining the chat. And of course, Anthony Vidal. That's crazy. That's awesome to have that many. And of course, he's referring to the AF15. A couple other people just joined. Hey, just joined. I'll catch the rewind for what I missed. Unbelievable, man. So another question for you that I always like to ask this to people who have like really big books, because I have a few as well. Where do you, obviously you've traded up, but where did you get the books from? Were they shows? Were they just LCSs? Were they just fellow people you knew?
Well, what I did was up until I had this one here, this was probably my 16th copy right now. I think it's my 16th. So I got to the point of collecting so many of them, it sounds kind of strange where I say this. I got kind of bored because I had so many. Because now
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I don't know. It was weird. I had so many, and I'm going, is there anything else? Is there anything else that can top this? Well, yeah, maybe Action Comics.
Well, there is that. There's a 9.6 that just sold, right?
Yeah, I couldn't afford that.
Hey, man, you keep going like you're going, you may get there.
It's you never know. But as far as your question was,
yeah,
what was the question again, Lawrence?
Oh no, I was saying, like, where did you get the books from? Were they LCSs? Were the people you knew online?
No, I got them online on some different sites. I was like if I spend time on the internet, I might spend maybe 2 hours a day or maybe more. It's just me just surfing the net constantly. Like I do it pretty much constantly, even today, like continuously wise, where it doesn't become work for me. It just becomes like an enjoyment where if you don't go online each day, you might miss something. So that's why it's always imperative where if you want something, some people are always kind of upset where they can't find us at a certain deal or a certain time. It just comes with timing wise. You can something will come to you at least expected. So for me, wise, when I collected my copies, I found them on eBay sites. I probably picked up maybe half of them on that site at the time where the raw copies were all over the place. And I even told my dealer about the time, I think it was like 2014 or 15, I said to him, and I told him, I said, these raw copies are going to become a thing of the past soon enough. You watch. He goes, no, I don't think so. There's so many out there. I said, no, you watch. They will become a thing of the past. Everyone wants them graded. They'll put them aside, and you won't see many very raw copies out there. And I was right. You don't see hardly even one a year now.
I know. Anybody who's watching my channel knows that I am collecting nothing but raw books right now for the most part. A couple of the bigger ones, like I try to get graded only for the fact that you worry about restoration and stuff like that. But other than that, I'm mainly a raw collector for right now. And that's the reason why. Eventually, I think that you're not going to find any books raw anymore.
No.
The big ones, anyway.
They're thinking about the money-wise and slabbing them and saying, here you go, because now all of a sudden the grade is going to speak for itself. And that's true. But then the point is, like, how much is it going to cost for a graded one? How much is it going to cost for a raw grade or raw copy? The raw copies are nice. Yeah.
Have you ever sending books to CGC or any other slabbing company?
Yeah, I do. I have a good friend of mine in Las Vegas. He does it for me. So if I need some stuff done, where I've been friends with him probably for about 10 years now, he's a
Oh,
really
wow.
super great guy, and he helps me out a lot. And I can't appreciate him more than what he's done for me. So if I need books that I want to get graded, I send it to him. He solidifies them facilitates them to CGC, and I just take it like that. So majority of the books that I have that are graded came from him, which so for him to facilitate to CGC and then come back to me. It's a long process, but I'm patient. So
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because there's a lot of controversy out there with CGC, CBCS. I won't mention the other couple of companies out there for right now, because I think most people use those two. But
yeah.
have you ever used anybody else or just CGC? Is that your preference? Do you care? Do you not care?
I've only used CGC. The only times I've used CBCS was maybe 2 or 3 times. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I knew one guy who used to work for CGC as a witnesser, and he contacted me up at the time. This was maybe 6 years ago. I think his name was Steven. I think it was. He works with CBCS right now as far as like the witnessing program there, and that's the only time I've ever used as far as like CBCS wise, where because like I said, it's subjective wise where you send it to or who you don't send it to. It's up to you. CBCS does just as good a grading job as CGC does. The only difference is because what's more popular, what's not. But we all know Steve Borak. He's the one that pretty much founded the CGC whole marketing thing. Where now he took it to a new level where he's doing his own things. So why people wouldn't, as far as they trust that company more, so to get the same amount of money wise as CGC is just beyond me. If this is the guy who started CGC to an extent, why wouldn't you go to CBCS wise? Because they're just as comparable as grades wise. Because the labels aren't as flashy, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You look at PSA labels or Beckett labels, are they flashy?
They're awful. No,
they're awful. But the card speaks for itself of what the grade is. So if people want to put flashy labels on a book to make it sell more money, then that's just crazy way of buying.
Yeah, I agree. I've used both in the past as well. Currently use CGC only because I'm a little bit more comfortable with the process. I've done it a million times. I had not a bad experience with CBCS, but I dropped off at a show and I didn't see him again until 8-9 months later, which I thought was crazy. So
yeah, it happens.
That was that for me. Exactly. So nothing bad about them, but it is what it is.
No, I waited 8 months for CGC for my last books, and I go, oh, it is what it is. I can't complain about it. I can't, cry about it. That's just how the market is. Last year, everything went crazy, and everybody started submitting books because the market got out of hand. So what do you think is going to happen to the facilitators down there? They be inundated full of books there. They can't start grading 10,000 books a day. It's impossible.
Yeah. So there's actually a question in the chat for you, so I'm going to go ahead and post it. Af15 has skyrocketed lately. A CGC 4.0 sold for $72,000. What do you think about Spider-Man #1? Where do you think Af15 and 4.0 might be at 5 years? So I'm assuming they mean Amazing Spider-Man #1, not regular Spider-Man #1 by McFarlane. So I'll let you address the first part of this question first. What do you think about Amazing Spider-Man 1?
Spider-Man #1 is always going to be the second contender to AF15. Like I spoke to another YouTuber years ago about this, and they always tell me that ASM #1 isn't comparable, but they even said to me, well, it's not a good investment. Well, I said to them, I beg to differ, because ASM #1 is comparable to, say, Superman #1 next to Action Comics #1. Everyone's going to trickle down to second best thing. So if AF15 is going to be the hardest one to acquire right now, ASM #1 is still a good book to go after. And as you can see, the market wise, because I remember back in 2013, I could have picked up a 2.0 or 2.5 signed by Stan Lee for $2,500. Now that $2,500 back then, obviously today is what, almost 9-10 years later, the book's worth probably $14,000 right now.
Yeah.
So if that's not a good investment, I don't know what it is. But as far as AF15 in 5 years, what I think it's going to do, I wasn't wrong on my predictions on what happened was for the 2.0s. When I said it's going to probably hit $20,000 in 2019, I was only almost a year short. So a 4.0, I think it'll probably be worth over $100,000 in the next 5 years, well over, because the demand is so high. Demand.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, AF15, I've been saying that in my videos, is the #1 investment book right now
It
because
is.
let's be honest, 99% of people can't get an Action 1 or a
No,
Tech 27.
no,
This is the next thing, and right now this is almost out of reach for a lot of people now.
it is. If you want to get a 0.5 grade, go right ahead because I'm seeing like like I said, the Golden Age books, like say Superman 1 or Batman number 1.5. These books are going so high. What do you think is going to happen to an AF15? It's the same thing. People are trying to get it. There's new collectors coming into the market, which is great for the hobby because with inflation wise and new collectors coming to wise, they'll try to get their what they can obtain, even if it's a lower beat up grade. They'll still try to get it because it's a piece of history. People don't
I was just going
understand
to
it.
say that. I was just going to, you took the words right out of my mouth. There's a finite copy of these right now, and you were talking about the greatest superhero of all time.
Yes.
It is history.
It's history. I said, this could be the first Bible and it's beat up to hell. It doesn't, you know what I mean? This is worth because what it is. People always consider, but always about the grade. I said, it's not always about that. Get your mind out of that way of thinking. Look at these books. They're significant for a reason.
Yes.
To me, wise, if it's a 1.0 or 0.5, just cherish it because the book is absolutely, iconic as it stands.
Yep. There's not listen, let's be honest. There's not a whole lot of people out there who can attain this book. So if you can, like he said, even at a 0.5, it is worth it.
It's worth it. It's to me, it's like you walking by. I remember a time where someone asked me, goes, "Why do you collect pages from a comic book? They're like worthless." I go, "Well, wait a second now." I go, "You better put your tongue on that one," because I remember back in 2006, I think it was 2005, I bought a Superman #1, the first page. Mind you, it was the first page where it had the rocket ship. It was the origin page. I bought that from a guy on eBay for $600. He knew he was going to regret selling it to me, but he had to at the time because he needed money. And I said, I was looking for that page because it's a significant page to that whole book. It was the history to that book. He gave it to me for $600. I held on to it. Then I had some guy about 5 years ago begging me to sell it for $5,000. What do you think I did?
Did you sell it?
I sold it. Guess what? I put the money. Guess what? I put the money towards another AF15.
There you go. I have owned a page as well of an AF15 before, so I totally get the why it's worth it. So
it's pages to any kind of comic book. If you can find a page to like say AF15s 1 to 6, those are your main pages you want to find. Hunt them down. I'm telling you right now, they're iconic pages to have.
I could have sworn you had posted something on Instagram about other comic strips from like that are like crazy that I saw. Like I don't know if it was Superman comic strip from the paper or what it was.
Yeah, it was in 1939 because when I was I collect a lot of Superman old memorabilia and collectibles from the 40s and late 30s, whenever Superman came to be. And I was always after, like 20 years ago, I was after the first dailies of Superman when it first came out into the newspaper strip. So I hunted them down for like years. I couldn't find one. I finally found all a set of 6 of them. It was like from the first one to the last one, and it was on Heritage. And I looked at it. I said, "This is like, if I can't get the Action 1 because it's too expensive at that time, this is the second best thing to me to have the actual dailies from the newspaper strip." So I looked at it.
Amazing.
The amazing part about that is I bought it for $50 back then, and that was it.
You still have them or no?
No, I still have them. Yeah, I treasure those ones.
That is amazing. Imagine owning a piece of newspaper history. And let's think about this now because there are a couple of newspapers out there still, but newspapers have gone the way of, they're going bye-bye soon, in my opinion. Everything's online. Everything's on social media. You're going to have to pay for something that you want on a phone or on an iPad or whatever. So imagine how much those might be worth years from now when paper newspapers aren't around.
Yep, I had the first newspaper strip of Spider-Man. I had the first Sunday strip of Spider-Man. The first ones because they cost me like $10 at the time when I picked them up. I go, it's just the history. It's just the history because it's the history I'm after. Like I said, I was not into this hobby for money wise. It's always about loving it as being like Indiana Jones. You're going to find something as a grail to you. And that was the main objective for me. Like I said, if you're looking to buy into comics because the money's all there, then you might as well buy Apple stocks or you might as well buy Amazon stock because it's just money, right? So just go buy some stocks then. If it's all about money.
That's an amazing point.
It's just for me. Wise, these books are artwork. They're artwork that, yes, there's like they are commodities right now, but they are still artwork in a book. That's the way I look at them.
Amazing. So for anybody who's just joining the cat, I am the chat, not the cat. I am chatting with at Errol Molnar Instagram. I call him the AF15 King. He's just joining us late. He has actually owned 16 copies of Amazing Fantasy 15. He currently has 3 in his collection as you speak, and he's going over, we're talking about, his favorite comics, how he got into comics, what he collects now, stuff like that. So if you're just joining us now, this has been quite an experience just to have him on the channel. So have you brought anything else for us to see today?
Yeah, I'll show you something that was really rare for me to find. It correlates with Amazing Fantasy 15. It was a reprint that was actually done in the UK. It was a book that came out a year after it was brought to the United States. And obviously the Pence copies were obviously vice versa to the UK and so forth and so on. So this book that I was learning about, they said, you know what, is there any versions of it that's comparable? So there was a couple of them I found. There's very difficult to find. Like, I mean, I got lucky when I found them because I'm online every day trying to look for them. And I got lucky one day, and one guy actually messaged me saying there's a copy that's out there if you want to pick it up, because I know it's not going to last, where they're not easy to find. Like, I mean, really hard. So this one here I picked up. Let me take plastic out. This one here, it's called Out of This World.
And what's the significance of this one?
This is the first UK print in black and white that came out a year later.
Oh, wow.
It's Out of This World 17. Steve Ditko did this artwork for this book. That's the significance to it. It's very hard book to find.
Would you mind sharing with us about how much something like that goes worth, or what it normally goes for? Or no?
Well, yeah, that's the problem. Like for this one here, this is the highest on the census right now. There's only like 2 or 3 copies in the census. That's it.
Wow.
As finding these books are very difficult. Like, I was hunting for this book probably for 6-7 years. I couldn't find it. So I finally found it on eBay. I think it was like a year or 2 years ago. And I saw it on there, and I said, you know what, whatever it goes for, I'm going to go for it. I don't care what it goes for. I want the copy. So at the time I paid, I think it was $1,200, I think.
Oh, that's not bad at all.
No, and so the time when I paid for it, I basically saw another copy a week later, and it was a detached cover to it. That one sold for $600 because they knew the significance to that book, how hard it is to come by. Like any kind of reprint of AF15, the early ones, they become treasures because these are the earliest reprints that you could find. The second best to it.
Yeah. Very cool.
The second one I have is this one here. This one's from Australia. This one here. The very first AF15 inside. 1979. This one was tough to find.
That cover looks familiar. Did they use that off a different, like, regular Amazing Spider-Man cover? I don't know.
No, they used it for, it's from an interior page. So the inside on the last 6 pages, it has the whole Amazing Fantasy in black and white in the back. This one is extremely hard to find. This one here.
That's amazing.
I lucked out and I paid, I think it was like $60-70 for it.
Where did you get it from?
That was from eBay. That was from a guy down. That was from a guy in Australia selling it, and I don't think he even knew the significance to it, because that was the first Australian edition that was ever printed from maybe AF15, 1979. Wow. So to me, wise, I'm going, like I said, it wasn't about the money. It was about attaining something that I wanted to get.
Yeah. For anybody out there in the chat, or anybody who watches this on the rewind, there's a lot of knowledge being dropped today by Errol about these other comics, these, out of the United States first appearances of Amazing Fantasy 15. So
yeah. So everything else, as far as like for me wise, as far as artist wise, love of what kind of covers I like the most, probably I adore the most, is probably this one here, the John Romita one.
That is my favorite cover of all time, my friend.
Yeah, I absolutely treasure this one. Like, this is probably my 4th copy here. It's to me
like a nice high grade copy too.
Yeah, I got it cheap too.
That is amazing.
I just pick them up early wise, where it's, you know what, it's to me when I'm looking around for books, if you get early enough and you find them, like I don't go with what the market's dictating to me, what's selling, what's not selling. I know what these books are valuable to me. They are just for like I said, the history to it. If someone starts picking them up later on and starts finally gravitating towards them because now the market is dictating they should become hot. Well, they were hot back then, but no one was realizing it back then.
Yeah.
When they should have.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, so let me ask you this. What advice would you give to the new collector out there?
New collectors, if you're going to go into the hobby, don't follow what everyone else is following. Just follow what you want to buy. Like I know it's nice to have, like, say, every single Silver Age Grail book, like X-Men 1, Hulk 1, Fantastic Four, 48, 49, 50, 52. You know, all these books out there. And sometimes at this time and point where it doesn't become actually like feasible to do that. It becomes almost a rat race. You start getting to a certain point where you start falling to this rabbit hole, then what happens is you don't know what direction you want to go into because now your mind's going from every which way direction. I don't do that. I go into what I love the most. These books are what I love the most. These ones here. It's the Spider-Man books. I might add a couple other books, like say, I'll show it to you in a little bit. Other books that kind of mean something good to me, but I'll always find that if I go into one character that means the most to me, that's what I'll gravitate to because it's not going to spread my mind so many directions where I'm not sure what I'm going to actually adore and what I'm not going to adore. That's the whole point. So, and I know the market is high as it is. The market's high as it is. Don't get discouraged because of it. Like that's the worst thing to do is you get discouraged of it and then you stop collecting because of it. Don't ever do that. I can't afford an auction number one, so it doesn't deter me from not collecting comic books because I can't have the first Superman book. That's fine. I have a reprint of it or whatever. Sure, it's nice to have it, but it's not going to deter me saying, well, it's not worth me getting other books because I can't have action number one because now it becomes worthless. Don't ever do that. That is the worst thing to do.
I agree with you.
I got in early. You know what? That's just me. I got in early like everybody else. Someone else got Action Comics number one or Batman number one way before I started collecting these ones that I have here. Good for them. I praise them. So you know what? You're lucky to have got them when you did. I don't discourage them saying, or look back and saying, oh, damn, that guy for getting that book. I don't. Everything's got timing to it. What could be worth something later on? I don't know. I can't predict it. But what I do know is that these books that I have collected, they're historic books. They're only going to go up in value within the years. I can't say how high because look what happened to the market last year. It went crazy.
How about what advice? You have any advice for a seasoned collector? Somebody who's been collecting for a really long time. Anything? Not just new, somebody who's been doing it.
A seasoned collector wise, it depends on how you collect. Like for me wise, as being a seasoned collector wise, my collecting wise has changed over the years. Instead of me having to want these other books, like say for instance, like X, Y, and Z, I may say, what, I'm going to take out Y and Z and just collect X now because to me, actually, I treasure them more than the other books because to me, wise, if I'm going to put all these books into a box and never look at them, why even have them? It makes no sense to me. So
that actually brings up another question. Do you display your books at all, or do you just kind of leave them in a box like most people do?
I do some of them. Some of the ones I had before, like the Superman 75, Death Superman, I display those because that's what got me started into the hobby. I treasure those books. That's what actually got me to the hobby. And I look at those books. Yeah, there's some value to it, but it wasn't about the value. It's just basically, I actually love the stories. I love looking at the artwork wise and just being surrounded by it. But the top dollar books that I have, I won't do that now because it's just too much like labor of love and too much time and effort I put into it, to do that where it's like, it's like putting out $1 million, a big briefcase and saying, here it is.
Yeah.
This guy has I don't want to do that.
All right, very good. So let's look at what else you brought for us because I know this is something. I'm sure there's some great stuff there.
Yeah, like this one here, I was looking for this for a while. Like most of the stuff I have is these Spider-Man books because I love Spider-Man, and I know you do too as well.
Yeah,
and that's what I respect that because, like I said, it's the books, the history-wise, and the artists. This one here,
Spider-Man guys stick together. That's the first thing.
Yes, exactly. We stick together. No pun intended.
Yeah, I even get that. You're right.
This one here, this is okay. This is not just a newsstand version of Secret Wars 8. This is the Mark Jewelers copy. That makes it harder to find, a Mark Jewelers copy. So I've got plenty of other ones as far as like the Secret Wars. You know, I have a 9.8. I bought the 9.8. It wasn't great at the time. It was a copy I bought back in 2012. It was raw. I had John Beatty sign it. I had Michael Zeck sign it. You know, all three guys. You know, all three guys signed it for me. I came back 9.8. I looked up. It was great because I had a good eye for the book, and it came back fortunately a 9.8 2 years ago. So, but these other books I wanted to get a Mark Jeweller's copy, and I found one just sitting there. Not much, you know, as far as like action art, but I picked it up because, you know, it's a Mark Jeweller's copy. So
yes. That's the book that actually got me back into collecting, by the way. That book right there.
Yeah, I love Secret Wars 8. It's probably the most significant book next to ASM 300 because it's the origin of the black suit, you know. And then also this one here you probably love, which is probably one of my favorite copies of ASM. Favorite cover, probably one of my top 2 or 3 ASM books by far.
My favorite, also my favorite covers outside of ASM 39, but I always call that book the trifecta, right? It's got the first appearance of the Kingpin, classic cover, and then the classic storyline Spider-Man No More. Absolutely one of my favorites. So I agree with you there.
Yeah. This is my 4th copy. So my first copy was an 8.5. I picked up that 7 years ago. Wasn't very much. I picked up a raw copy, came back at 7.5. I had John Romita sign it for me 2 years ago. And then I picked up another raw copy and then this copy. So I just love the cover so much. It's just, you know,
it's unbelievable. I had 4 copies and I sold one just because when Kingpin came out, I figured, you know what, it's a little prudent for me not to have 4 copies. Let me get rid of one, and it was worth it. I still have 3 though.
Yeah, this one here, when I picked up, I know the Sinister Six was going to be coming out sooner or later, and it's just one of those books where you have to get. I got the very first one, but unfortunately, you know, I had to use it for a trade for my ASM 7.0, which I did for. But this one here, manual number 6. This is the first John Romita one, the cover.
Oh, really? I didn't even know that.
Yes, this is the first John Romita cover, ASM 6. It's a reprint of the first one. And if you see in the corner, John Romita signed it.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So.
And I love Romita's signature, too. To me, it's just, it's all uppercase. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, just to me, wise, I'm like going, this is a cool cover because Romita did it. So I had the opportunity to get Romita to sign it for me because he was getting up in age and plus, you know, what was going on with the world today, you know, if it takes a year to sign it, as long as it's in good hands, the facilitator takes care of it and it comes back fine. So this book I actually got for free. So.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Imagine getting a John Romita signed book for free, guys. So here's a great question. So we're doing an Af15 giveaway to someone in the chat. What's up, bud? How you doing, man?
This one here, maybe. Okay, this is a reprint cover, right?
Looks beautiful.
It's a reprint cover, but obviously Stan Lee signed it. Why did he sign it? Because I have a coverless copy to go this. That's why I wanted it.
That is amazing.
So because I knew, because I knew Stan Lee was coming like as far as like exhibition wise and that, and I had a good, like I said, a good friend of mine in Las Vegas who actually got the Stan Lee to sign this for me. So I always wanted it signed. You know what I mean? So it's when he did that for me, I'm like going, it's just like I said, it wasn't about the money. It was just, you know, to get it done. That's all.
That's unbelievable.
You know,
that's one of my regrets, not meeting Stan Lee. One of my regrets.
I met Stan twice. He came down in Melbourne. I think it was in 2012. It was in July. I was first in line because I had VIP tickets and they weren't going cheap. And I said, my wife convinced me actually to buy the VIP tickets because another chance you're going to get to see Stan Lee. So I bit the bullet and bought a VIP ticket. It cost at the time, I think it was like $600. I didn't care because I knew the lineup.
That's a once in a lifetime opportunity. You got
the lineup. Yeah, the lineup itself would probably be 2 blocks away. So I'm not going to wait in line because by the time you start signing these books, his hand will be half dead, just kind of scribbling on it, you know?
Yeah.
So I had him sign a good amount of items for me. And basically when he was here, you know, I remember when my wife actually came up to him and my wife she goes, welcome to Australia. And he goes to her, he goes, meeting women like you is well worth it. And he kissed her on the cheek, and I said to her, "Don't you ever wash that face?"
Yep, unbelievable.
Yeah,
Wow, that's amazing.
yeah, yeah. What else I got? I got this one you probably might not know. The Tales to Astonish number 59. Do you know what the
I've owned that.
significance?
I don't know the significance, but I've owned that book since I was a kid. It's one of the early Silver books I bought when I was a kid.
Okay, do you know the significance to this book? Do you know why I got it?
No idea.
This is the reason why Bruce Banner turns into the Hulk is because of anger. This shows it inside here.
Oh, really?
That's why. Yes. The Hulk
I
one
never
doesn't
knew
show
that.
it. This one tells the story of how he turns green. Because of his anger turns him green. That's why this book is significant to me. It's very
Oh,
people
wow.
don't realize that.
More knowledge out there for the comic community. What number is that? Tales to Astonish
Number 59.
59. There you have it, guys. That's unbelievable. Did
Yeah.
not know
I
that.
just because the history wise, I go, this is kind of cool to actually have. I said, I want that. I go, I didn't care what's going to be worth down the road, down 10 years down the road. I just want to have it.
Yeah.
So Roll by Night.
Another copy that I picked up actually when I first got back into collecting as well 4 years ago that's one of the books as well. That's another great classic cover.
This one is a very fine condition wise. Guess how much I paid for this back in 2012?
2012, I'm gonna say like $100.
$80.
Yeah, I was close. There you go. I'm going off that because I got my copy 4 years ago, and I think I paid like $250 for it. So
Yeah. I love the book. This is the worst Roll Up by Night. Like I got onto all these Silver Age books because just knowledge wise of going online and researching and the things that got me started where if I was to look at something as far as historic wise, I used to be looking into the Wizard magazines for all my information.
I used to love
Everything.
Wizard, man.
That was the thing that got me started into comic books where if I was to get, anything out there, what's the Bible to comics? It's pretty much, Wizard magazine. Yeah, everything as far as like knowledge wise, where if I want something every month, every Wednesday is be coming out, like new comic book day, but every once a month, the Wizard magazine would be coming out. It would just basically be me drawn to that book and just looking through it, And I'll tell you the thing, every single time if you look inside the Wizard magazines, you'll see the hot 10 picks on there. So if you look at those ones inside there, it's so comparable to what's going on today. It's no different. But what back in say 10, 15, 20 years ago is no different today because most of these books back then were never high dollar value books or even being hyped up to it. So basically they're not investment books. They were hot books, but people are still picking them up because maybe there's a chance or shot that's going to go up in value. It's the same thing what's going on today. People are buying these books because it's a hot, book of the month or hot book of the week. And we all know what happens to it. History repeats itself. People don't realize that.
Just going to say that history is bound to repeat itself.
It always does, and people just don't seem to understand that. They go, oh no, maybe this is different. No, it's not different. If you're going to tell me what's out there 20 years ago that came out as far as a modern book that's been basically a hot commodity, unless it's Miles Morales' book, then tell me what else is going to be. Not many out there.
I agree with you. I actually own 3 modern books. That's it. Unless it's something that, of course, that I've read, like I'm just buying to read it just because maybe it's a good read. But 3 modern books. Yeah. That's it.
Some of the, like I said, some of the reading book wise, like if you buy them, like there it is.
There you go.
It's got all everything aside as far as like what's hot, what's not. And I love this book because it was a good entertainment book at the time where it just got me drawn into like say what's out there. Even at the back of the pages, if you look inside here, it's going to have the price guides.
I remember buying those and kind of shuffling through them to see what the books I had were worth back in the day.
What's green label, what's going up, what's yellow, what's going hot, it's red going down. It's the same thing today, but the same thing today is just basically on social media. This is paper format, that's video format. That's all it is. Yeah.
What else you got? Iron Man 1. Signed by Stan Lee. Oh my God. How many signed Stan Lee books do you own?
Probably about 10 or 15.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Stan signed this one for me. I think this book cost me probably $100 back then. Well, it's so
It's just like he said before, guys. Everything out there is timing, right? He obviously Earl's got a great eye. He's been in love with
yeah.
these characters his entire life, and he knew back then. He knew what they were going to be worth, and he wanted them. Forget what they were worth. He wanted them in his collection. He wanted to have them.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I wanted it in my collection. I got the eye for it. It's like I've never made a bad decision of what I buy because it's like I don't find the books, they find me, in a sense where if you try to find something, someone's shoving into your face that you should buy this, don't buy it. You buy because you actually like see something in it. Like for me, these two books here, right?
You guys know what those are, right? First Hawkeye and first Black Widow.
Yeah. Sorry about the glare. Now these books, guess how much they cost together back then, 2012.
I mean, I still think both of those keys are still really undervalued now. So I couldn't even imagine what they're worth back then.
They cost me $200 back then.
Each or together?
Together.
Oh my God. That is amazing. That is crazy.
Hey. Because like I said, I looked at them and I'm going, that's cool to pick. I'll pick up that one. I'll pick up that one. I'll pick up that one. You know, I was never gravitating towards non-key books. But like I said, today the market is going on non-key books and they're trying to make something that's nothing into something. It's like how do you say it? The old saying goes, you can put pink lipstick on a pig, it's always gonna be a pig, no matter how you look at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You got to think about it this way as well. Like these characters have been around since the 60s, we're talking about most of the time. And we're now in 2022, whereas characters are coming out now and they're coming out for 3 months later. They're worth, going up in price to the point where they're a ridiculous amount.
Yes.
Against characters that have been around for 80 years. So to me, that's what you guys got to think about when you're collecting comics.
I gravitate towards book that has legs on it. I don't gravitate towards book that are just being reborn or being born in this modern age world. Like it's great if you want to collect them to read them, but don't bank on them as being your gateway to the retirement village. It's not going to happen. Yeah. You know what I mean? So if you want something that's got sustainability to it, buy a book that's got legs to it. It's been proven time and time again. It's like someone who's picking up and say a Hulk 181. You know, that book has been popular ever since, the 70s for a reason. It's not going to go down that book. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because it's interesting you brought that book up, because I have seen that book go absolutely nuts. But there are so many copies of that book around. I mean, do you think it's worth the price that it's at? I mean, there are a lot of copies out there.
There are a lot of copies, but people don't understand this is the supply and the demand is massive. Like there could be like I was watching a program a few months ago, and these guys were discussing it, and they're talking about there's probably over 100,000 copies of Hulk 181s out there. But you understand this is they're worth money no matter how much inside, because people want that book. It's the demand for it. That's the difference that people understand. If you're going to find something, the demand is to it. The numbers don't matter. It doesn't matter the rarity wise to it. If the character's popular, people still want it. I can understand it, how high it's going to go, but for what the money it's gravitating towards, who knows? Like a 9.8, it's the only time it's going to hit 100,000. I knew it was going to hit 50,000 3 years ago or 4 years ago. I said this book's got potential to hit 50,000. People don't realize that. You have to have a hindsight when you buy something. You got to project yourself on what's going to be worth later on. Like if you're going to buy a book, buy it for tomorrow, not for today. That's how I always buy things. That's a great point. If you buy into a book, like say for instance, Amazing Spider-Man, like the Ditko books, like back in the 60s, my main objective back when I was doing it was looking for the mid-grade books at white pages. Why? Because the price at the time when I was buying them, I'd say $700-800 was a good amount of money at the time for that price. And I said, well, it's expensive, yeah, but at least if it goes to 2,000, it's still affordable for most people. So I always make sure I was buying them at a certain grade, a certain page quality, and I was dead on right as far as the prices scores. Because now all of a sudden the lower ends of those books, they say 4, 3, and 2. Now they start to trickle over from where the mid grades took off. The $700. You see where I'm getting at?
Yeah. So
So
would
it
you
made
think
great.
that that's the book that's the most wanted out there right now? Most people trying to get still?
I think so. I think so because it's like I said, it's like the Amazing Fantasy 15 of the Bronze Age. It always has been. It'll
Yeah.
never change. It'll never change because especially when the new actor or whoever's going to be playing Wolverine comes out, bets are all off. How
I
high it's
don't
going to
know how
go?
many. I don't know how many copies out there of AF15 off the top of my head, and I don't know how many copies of Hulk 181 are out there. But I would think that there's probably 3 times the amount, but I could be wrong. That's
I
just an
think
assumption on my part.
I think at the time right now, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine a couple of days ago, and I mentioned to him this. I said, you look at the census count on Amazing Fantasy 15, there's probably about, say, what, over 3,500 copies. Now, how many are low grades, how many are mid grades, and how many are higher grades? There's a big significant difference to that. Now, the thing about that is that the demand for that book. People understand that that book is always comparable to, say, First Superman or Batman. They know that. So it's the only book that's attainable to this point right now. So when you look at the count, it's nothing. The demand out there could probably be, say, 200, 300, 400,000 people wanting that book, maybe more, maybe 1 million people. And that
Yeah.
little low number is not high at all. How many
I
raw
you know
copies?
I
Mm,
never thought of it this way. Would you say that's number four after those big top three? It's just the fourth most sought after book outside
I
of
would
those top three?
I would say so because AF15 is still obtainable up until maybe a year or 2 years from now. Who knows? Because
I
all
would say
the
about a year because about a year I think
yeah,
it was. I mean it's almost like tripled in a year from what I've
yeah.
seen.
Yeah, it's just one of those books where people know this is the last grasp of whatever they can to actually get it because they know where it's heading. Because if you look at the market since last year, it's been skyrocketing. Mind you, AF15 passed, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was on a major slump. I didn't care. I looked at the slump and said, "Oh, this doesn't mean nothing to me." I go, it could be slumping for 2, 3 years, doesn't matter to me. I said, it'll bounce back regardless because people are going to realize this book. That's what's happened. So how high it can go, the sky's the limit. Like who would have thought an Action Comics #1 that went for $1 million back in 2010 would be worth, $4 or $5 or $6 million now? No one would have thought that.
Well, to me, like that book is so rare that like there
Sure.
are a lot more copies of these books available than the Action One. I couldn't even tell you how many there are out there, but like I've only seen a handful from people that on Instagram or that are up for auction right now, stuff like that.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. But
you go on eBay and there are a lot of AF15s trying to be sold by people, and I think they're just trying to get their money out at this point because the book has
there's some
come
people
again.
there's some people that want to do that, but the problem is they're going to regret selling that now because a lot of people I talked to before, they always ask me, Errol, do you have a copy to sell me? Errol, you got a copy to sell me? I said, no, I can't. I remember I'll never forget this conversation I had. It was probably in 2015 or 14. I had this one guy with his brother. They were begging me to sell them a copy of my 1.0 copy. And I said to him, listen, if you want the copy, give me 5,000 for it because you know what? It's worth what it's worth. And he's trying to, chisel me down and saying, I'll give you $4,500 for it. It's for me and my brother as an investment. I said, well, listen, I can't do that. This book is not going to be on a for sale list as far as 10% off. It'll never happen. No one's going to sell this book for less than what it's worth just to get rid of it because they know the value to it. I said to him, listen, if you want the book, pay me what I want because you guys will not regret it later on. And he just says, well, if this is going to cost me between $500, I said, it's your choice, not my choice. And I was right. Now he's probably kicking and screaming why he didn't get my book, 5, 6 years ago. I said, I told you. For
You're right, man.
$500, you could have gained $15,000, $20,000 investment now for 500.
Amazing. Yeah,
That's
you're
how it
right.
is.
100%.
That's how it is. So it's I'm like looking at it going, you know what? You're trying to grasp it pennies wise, and you want to get more out of it. Then it won't happen. You have to see yourself and where these books are heading. You just can't just gravitate and buy them and just hope a TV show is going to market them all up to a certain point. That's not the way to go. If it takes a book to be marketed from a TV show to price up the popularity, that book is gonna not be a solid foundation. I wouldn't do that. If you can buy
The
a
one,
book that, yeah,
yeah, finish and then I'll make a comment.
yeah, if you can buy a book that doesn't need a TV show or a movie to price it up, like Action Comics #1 or AF15, it doesn't matter if the movie tanks or not. People are still going to want to buy it because it's significant. That's what people don't realize that.
Agreed. Now, I will throw a little bit of a caveat in there, and what I think and what I've seen from these MCU movies and stuff like that is that these bigger characters that have come on the scene within the last 20 years, you have to know which of these characters are big time. Like I saw the Noel character from Venom. Like people are paying up for the book. I just don't understand. He's gonna appear maybe in a movie down the line, and that's gonna be it. You're never gonna see him again. But a character like obviously Miles is the first one that comes to mind. Spider Gwen is the other one that comes to mind. I'm anxious to see what they do with the new Miss Marvel. There you go.
This is
Um,
actually this is actually the Mole Mexican version. Only 1,000 were
I can
made.
tell
This
because
is
that's the foil, right? It's foil.
yes.
Yeah.
This I bought this the same month it came out. I said I gotta get that book.
Yeah. So there are a few exceptions to the rule when you
Yeah,
think that they're going to be huge characters going down the line.
yeah.
But these minor characters like Errol is talking about, like anytime you see me do a hot 10, I always recommend the Silver Age keys first, Bronze Age bigger keys, because those are the keys that are going to last a long time. So I'm going to switch
Yeah,
gears a little bit, and I want to ask you a question, okay?
yeah, go ahead.
I know you watch some of my stuff on YouTube, but is there any other
All the time.
YouTubers that you watch that are entertain you, meaning like or even dislike?
You know what? I find every kind of place I go to, as far as the YouTube channels, I kind of gravitate to seeing like I pretty much spread myself out on where people are talking about. Like, say, there's there's a couple places like obviously I watched Comic Tom 101. I watched Gem Mint. Like they're both probably the popular ones on the food chain. Um, I watch Superpower Review. I love the guy. He's absolutely fantastic on his channel. You know, and there's also like other places like say Sticky Goose. He actually was he made me laugh. Was it yesterday? He posted this one posting on on the super hyping of thing of the books nowadays, where you have to get this book, you need to get this book, you have to the speculation market absolutely had me in stitches, because the whole posting he put on there from Sticky Goose, it was bang on. I could have done a better job. I you
So
know
I as soon as he posted that, I asked him like who I because I didn't know who
yes,
Sticky Goose was. So I jumped on and I watched his video. He's right. He was also almost making fun of everybody out there doing spec videos. So it was quite
100%
funny.
true.
So
Yeah,
you could see what he recommended. If you guys haven't checked out that video, check out Sticky Goose on YouTube. It was quite funny. But he also, after I saw that video, I started checking out some of his other stuff, and it was quite good. So if you haven't checked him out,
yeah.
check him out.
Yeah, I watch Swaggle House. I watch him as well too. I watch Newbie's comics. Like Newbie's, I watch his comics, like his site on there. But the thing I kind of like look at how they're collecting. They're collecting these $10 books, $20 books. And they're trying to flip them, flip them, flip them. It's almost like playing penny slot machines. Like if you want to get into the market of getting something substantial, there's a time frame of when to get in and when you can't get in. And if you try to go a certain way, where if you want to get these bigger books now, it's getting really hard now unless you got something to kind of give to that bigger book. So to me, wise, if you want something as far as like say a big book, you have to put up another big book to get that. There's no other way around it. You have to
Because
sacrifice something for something. You can't just
yeah,
go, yeah.
it's going to take you a long time buying really small books to kind of sell those and make enough money. Because by the time you do that, the next book you're looking for has already gone up in value.
Yeah, like I understand like some people want to keep those books. I don't want to give up these 3 books for that book. I said, well, you're missing the whole point here. Like I gave up a lot of good books to get my 7.0 AF15. Like don't get me wrong, like I worked my butt off to get that book. Like I did things methodically, where what books to get, what area wise I could hold it to. When an opportunity came to me, I just took it. It was no brainer for me. That's why some people go, well, I can never sell these 15 or 30 or 40 books for that one book. Well, I know I would. If I had saved basically $500,000 in books and someone offered me a Detective 27 and my 100 books was equal to that book, I wouldn't hesitate 1 second. That's just how I am. I don't want to
Yeah.
have all these books stacked up to me where I got to worry about them now. If I have to worry about only 3 or 4 books on my collection, but they're massively high dollar books, that's easier to maintain or manage them instead of having to worry about if you have a house fire, you got something going on, leaking in the house. These books could be, the worst thing that ever happened to you if you lose them like that.
Yeah. All right. So before we go on, any other books you want to show us? Or
Yeah.
was that it?
No, no.
Show us everything. Show us everything you got. There you go.
This was a J. Young Lee book, the 1 in 100 variant. Why I bought it? Because there's the cover. I love the cover to it. It's probably
So
one
as
of
you can,
yeah.
as you see, guys, not only does he collect amazing Silver Age keys, like he also appreciates the amazing artwork that is today on these books. So
Yeah. Like this book itself is a 1 in 100 variant. Like I don't collect modern books at all. Like very little, like maybe 1% of the time. But when I saw this one go up for sale, you know what? I love the cover to it. You know what? Even being a variant like that, it's like, you know what? I love anything that's got Spider-Man related to it. So obviously with that book, that's why I bought it, because it's the cover alone is just basically beautiful artwork piece. That's why I love it. This one too. This was an obscure book. I bought this a few years ago. Now, if anybody knows, like say Albedo, you know that rabbit Usagi Yojimbo, like this is the first one that actually started it all. This is the prototype to it. This is the very first prototype of Usagi Yojimbo. This is hard to come by because it's the first printing of only 500 done. It's a burgundy version. That's why it's harder to find this book. The other one, the Albedo number 2, it's at 2,000. This is lower print run. Now imagine having a prototype of, say, Spider-Man number 1 or, say, Superman number 1. This is the prototype to it. This has got a lot of merit to it as it stands. Same as this book. That's why I picked it up.
You don't get to see that every day, guys.
No, this one here was a rare gem, and I just looked at it. It was a few years ago. I'm like, these are hard to come by as well too today. So whenever I see the opportunity, I just pick them up. And I just for the price wise, like I said, they were cheap at the time. This one I love.
I've seen that somewhere recently. Might have been you posting on Instagram, but I have seen that one recently. Unbelievable.
Yes, Stan Lee writes about how artists and writers can get into the market and what's the secrets to it. It also dictates as well Captain America on how he was created as well too. It's a very cool book to get. Honestly, the history to it, it's really well done.
Actually, I think I might have saw that on Comic Com's channel that he might have picked that up recently, but don't quote me on that.
Yeah. This one here. Now, this is my spec book. This one probably no one ever even thought about getting it or something like that. But for me, wise, I'm like, oh, this is really cool, actually. I'm going to pick this up. And it's not too expensive for 9.8.
What is that?
That's the first meeting of Daredevil and Kingpin.
Daredevil and Kingpin? Oh, wow. Yes. What issue is that?
That's the first meeting. By good old Frank Miller. First one right there.
What issue is that?
That one is issue 170. That's the one to watch.
I love that cover too, with him holding him like that. That's tremendous.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either. That's a great looking book.
It's a good book to have. Like I said, it's like, who knows how much it's going to be worth one day. But when I picked it up, it was $100. And I go, hey, you know what? I can't go wrong with it because it's a cool book to have. You know, it's only going to go more in value eventually down the road. But as far as like when it presents itself, as far as like being, you know, a key issue, because it's the first time Daredevil meets Kingpin, that's just cool in itself, especially from Frank Miller. You can't run.
I was talking about Daredevil on one of my previous videos. When I picked up my Daredevil 1, and I had got 7 that same week, and that's the first red costume. So it talks about Bullseye and it talks about Elektra, but there's another one, 170, the first time he meets the Kingpin, of course, and he has it at a 9.8.
That's a great book to get. Honestly, like
that is.
You know, it's you know what it's going to be worth later on, because you know obviously if anybody's watched the last episode of Hawkeye, you know, spoiler alert, you know what, you're not going to bring in the Kingpin in the last 2 episodes and kill him off, and then not ever see. You know, the guy got hit by a car, for God's sakes. The guy.
There's definitely coming back, and I wasn't crazy about that last episode, but in the Daredevil series, he was awesome. He was something else in the Daredevil series. I gotta hand it to you, because when he was in the Daredevil series, he was like the most ruthless kind of villain you ever had. Because you know, you could stab him 1,000 times, he still wouldn't die. Yeah, and I love the way he approached the character with Vanessa and being so. Like that drove him mad. I loved it. I really did.
Yes. That was the Daredevil series to me. Wise, the last there's 3 as a 3 series, a 3 season or 4. I'm not sure.
I think it was 3. I think it was 3. I think.
That was the best series I ever saw on Netflix as far as the Marvel series is going. Like that was like my favorite. I could never tell you like how much exciting it was to see Daredevil going to that hallway and you see those biker guys inside there. And he just goes to town on them. That was something else.
I like the Punisher series, as you can see. I love the Punisher.
Yeah,
I love John Bernthal. That jail scene with him, that to me was one of the greatest TV shots I've ever seen. Like unbelievable. And then of course Kingpin right there before he loses it. It was, I mean, it was awesome. Awesome. That's how the Punisher should be. Like it was unbelievable.
Like that book alone, 129 is so like to me, like yeah, it's valued high, but can it go obviously worth more? Of course it is. Like to me, you know what, that character is gold towards for Marvel. You're not gonna have a character like that and have him sit on the sidelines for another 10 more years. That's not gonna happen because that book is all that character is money to them. Why would they do that for? So
they call you the Af15 King. If anybody's gonna come up with a nickname for me, it should be the ASM 129 King because that is my. Over my time, my life, I've had like 8 or 9 copies of that book. I'm now down to 3, but I love that book.
I love it too. So, I got one coming now. It's 8.0. It's a white page one, and that one's coming out next. I just picked up that book last couple of weeks ago. It's getting FedEx to me now. So that was. I used to have four copies. Then I used them for trade bait, you know, for AF15s, and then now I said, okay, you know what? Now I want that one back in my collection just to have it out. So you know, it ends to the means for it. So now I got my 8.0 white page book, and I'm happy to have it because the cover alone is gorgeous. The yellow page,
it's beautiful, unbelievable. It's again, it's Romita, it's Gil Kane, it's yellow cover. One of my favorite characters. So
this one, another one here. I love this book too. This one's highly undervalued still. To me, it is. Like Web of Spider-Man. That's just like, you know, when Eddie Brock goes to the bell tower and all the symbiote goes onto his body, like this is the one that you want. It's like it's a classic.
To me, I always read Amazing Spider-Man, but then my second one was Web of Spider-Man. It wasn't spectacular. It was Web. I enjoyed those better. Yeah.
These books alone itself are just like they're under people's noses. You know, they just sit there. People don't realize it. And what happens is when there's heat on the books later on, they'll say, why didn't I get it years ago? Why didn't I get it last, you know, like a year ago? Why? Well, because you never saw something in something unless someone tells you about it. Unless they put on the news about it, or they put on social media about it. Just use your best judgment on something. Don't let someone dictate to you on what's going to be good, what's not going to be good. That's not the way to do it. You know? It's like going to a restaurant. If you go to a restaurant and there's 2 people in the restaurant, and then all of a sudden they're going, well, what are you guys having for dinner? Well, I'm having steak and lobster. And some guy says, well, I'm going to have a hamburger. Well, which is better? Well,
that's what you want. That's what you want.
That's what you want. They don't say, well, hey, listen, that lobster and the steak is really good. You should try that. Yeah. Well, I don't want that. I want the hamburger with the greasy fries on the side. Well, no, you don't. Well, yeah, I do.
That's cool. The way I want it. Yeah. No, listen, I agree with you. And you got to have fun in this hobby. You got to collect what you want to collect. Don't be fooled into thinking you have to buy something when you don't. No. Of course. I mean, me and Errol have similar tastes. We like the same books. We gravitate toward the Silver Age and bigger keys because those characters mean something to us. But if they don't mean anything to you, then that's fine. You collect what you want to collect.
That's right. Like for me, when I collect something, like I said, I collect because I want it. Actually, it's like I don't gravitate towards it because it's got the potential to make $10,000 on it. Like everyone's just been driven for money in the hobby. It wasn't like that 10 or 15 years ago. I'll tell you that right now. It wasn't like that because I remember a time. There's a little bit of history for you here. I remember the time when basically in 2012, I'm on eBay and I'm looking at these books that say Fantastic Four #1, Hulk #1, Tales to Astonish #39. I'll tell you how much I paid for these books when nobody wanted them. I was looking at the X-Men #1. I saw a guy online on eBay. He was selling for $2,700. I looked at him and said, and it was a mid-grade copy at that time. I looked at him and said, I'll give you $2,000 for it. He goes, really? I go, yeah. Well, no one's buying it. I said, so you might just give it to me because it's just going to sit there. So he sold it to me for $2,000, put it aside. I had Stan Lee sign it for me back in 2013. It came back at 4.5. I was happy with it. Yeah. Same thing with Tales to Astonish #39. I remember a time when I was at work I was working in the construction industry wise, and I'm like in this one building. I go for my break into my truck in the parking lot. I'm looking at eBay and going, oh, look at this. I got 5 minutes left for this one auction. It's got Tales to Astonish. Oh, sorry, Tales of Suspense 39, first Iron Man. And it was at $1,000. It was a nice, like, mid-grade copy. Nobody was bidding on it. I said, okay, I'll put a bid on it. I won it for $1,000 after 5 minutes. Nobody wanted it.
It's amazing for how long that book was so undervalued. It took a really long time, and the MCU to come out and the perfect Tony Stark cast for that book to actually start to go. But it's crazy.
I saw the value to these books before they had value to them. That's the difference. You see value to them before the value to it. That's the thing. If like I said, if I looked at it just as the money aspect to it, then it'd be a totally different world then. But back then, it's just like gravitating. And even a guy at the time, he gave me a Fantastic Four #1. I was looking at the book and I was like, oh, this looks pretty good. It's like a 3.5, maybe 4. And he was on eBay as well, 2012. I think it was probably July and August. This is when I was on my Silver Age kick. And I looked at the guy and he had his book for $2,800. So I lowballed him to $2,000 again. And he looked at me, he goes, that's $800 less than what I want for it. I go, well, if you take the $2,000, I'll give it to you tomorrow or today, any way you want it. I said, but it's not going to sell. It's just going to sit there because it was F1. Nobody wanted it at the time. Yeah. So he sold it to me, put it aside, and let the hobby fund itself.
Yeah.
That's how I did it.
Amazing, bud. All right. So before I end the stream, because we've been on for almost an hour and a half, I got one last question for you. Okay. Anything down the pipeline coming that you're looking for that you've attained that we don't know about that could possibly be huge, or anything you're looking for right now in the hobby?
I think probably right now is like I did what I could do in the hobby that's probably most haven't had the chance to do or can do right now, because like I said, I had a good hindsight of what I was looking for, and it panned out well for me. Like I can't say it didn't, because it did. As far as looking for something else, like to be realistic wise, to top this book off, it's hard to do right now, because this was my grail of all grails to get. And for me to climb what I had to do to get this by a lot of hustling and trading, like I've been trading for the past 10 years. And this is honestly, between everybody else watching, whatever, this is how I did it. I let the hobby fund itself. I couldn't come to my senses where I'd be cracking my wallet if I had the chance and saying, here's the money for this. Because like I said, if you let the hobby fund itself, you pick up the right books, you can get the book that you want. But there's the only thing that you can only do is get this book is if you have to sacrifice what you have to get there. If you're not willing to sacrifice to get the certain biggest book that you want, then you'll never get what you want. You'll always be stuck of what you have and never having to say, what if I could have done that? I'm not that guy. I've had those good books before. I've had, like, say, Experiment #1, 2, 3, 4. I've had them all. I had no regrets getting rid of them to get that big solid book. And I think like some people would do the same thing. Some people wouldn't, but that's just how they are.
So you heard it straight from the king's mouth, ladies and gentlemen. Again, Errol, thank you so much for coming on the channel. This is a long time coming for us, because we've been trying to get on for probably the better part of 6 to 8 months. So again, I really appreciate you coming on with us.
No, my pleasure. Like I said, I'm a big fan of your channel, and I love the stuff that you put on there, the content you put on there. You're honest. You know what you collect. And like, out of all the guys that I've watched on YouTube channels, you're the most solid, one of the most solid guys on here who knows what to collect, and how to do it. If anybody out there is watching this, like, this is the channel they should be watching legitimately every single week on how you actually should collect.
Thank you so much for those kind of words. I really can't say thank you enough. You've been an awesome guest, and we're going to do this again at some point. I'll give you a break. We'll come back and we'll get you on again. But I will say this: follow him at Errol Molnar on Instagram. He's always posting some amazing stuff, and like stuff like we've talked about today that you're never going to see out there in the community. So one shameless plug before we go. I am almost at 2,000 subscribers, so I'm going to be going to do a giveaway once we get to 2,000. So stay tuned for that once we finally get there, because it's going to be a big one. This is a milestone for me. I've been on YouTube for about 3 years, and it's the perfect time to have him on. It's the perfect time to get to 2,000, and of course, it's the perfect time to give my viewers out there something awesome.
I'll tell you what. I'll give you a book, Lawrence, for your 2,000 subscribers. Okay.
Really? You don't have to do that. You sure?
No, I'll do that. This is the fans. I'll give Lawrence one of my books in my collection. It's not a cheap book. Just, you know what? Just because to me, wise, I've done very well in this hobby. I've done very well. I just want to give up to the community, wise, what you give up to us. You know what I mean? So it doesn't pay me at all to do that. So trust me, I'll do that for you.
How guys, do me a favor. Go subscribe to this man on Instagram right now, because that is the kindest thing that I've ever been offered, and in this community has been offered for somebody who owns some of the most amazing books you're ever going to see. Errol, thank you so much again, man, for really coming on, and for the book. Like I said, it's an amazing thing to do for this community, for my channel. You know, I can't say thank you enough, man.
No, thank you for being here. Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it.
All right, guys. This is Lawrence over at Mighty Comics and Collectibles saying thank you for watching. Subscribe if you're not a subscriber. Follow Errol, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Errol, hang on one second. Don't go nowhere.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.